So we will be beginning in just 5 minutes. We are waiting for some more.
Sure, no problem at all.
Some more people are joining in, sir, but as we have some time constraints also, we will be beginning now.
Sure.
Hello, everyone. Uh, a very warm and pleasant good morning to everyone present here. Thank you so much for joining in for today's Founders Speak session. Here, I am Aditi Oja, and I'll be your host for today's Founders Speak session. Founders Speak, it is a series of sessions conducted by ECEL IIT BHU for connecting aspiring entrepreneurs to successful founders who share their startup journey with our startup community. It is my great privilege to introduce our speaker for today's Founders Speak session, Mr. Ankit Agarwal, who is the founder and CEO of Dare to Compete, with which we are quite familiar also. D2C or Dare to Compete serves over 1.5 million students from 20,000 plus colleges and companies across domains including B schools, engineering colleges, and arts and science colleges. Ankit sir is an engineer with an MBA. He has worked with some industry giants like Sapient, Deloitte, and many more companies. And these are just to name a few. Sir has been in one of those very few people who get awarded with 100% scholarship by Harvard Business School in one of their coveted leadership programs. We are very grateful, sir, that you could join us for today's session. We will be beginning with the session now. And guys, if you have any queries during the presentation, drop them in the chat box below. And now over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Aditi, for that introduction. And good morning, everybody. Rather, good afternoon, everybody. I would like to start with I don't have any lecture in place, so it's more like a conversation rather than a lecture or a gyan. I hate getting gyan when I was in my B school or E school, so that's why I won't be giving you gyan. I'll be sharing you certain aspects of what happened during my journey. Okay, and there might be some learnings that I have taken from that journey as such. Before we begin, I just want to ask you some questions and happy to maybe unmute, pitch in, or text it in the message box. So the question that I want to ask is that can you define in one word your biggest fear in life? It can be anything, but just define your fear in one word. Either you can unmute or put that in the chat box. Failure. Okay. Path is saying failure, regret. Flash says regret. Uh, let's wait for a few more. It can be anything from professors to cockroaches to maybe placements, death. Bhavna says death, being left put from the group. Okay, left out. What else? Judgments from people, being at the wrong place. Nice, nice. Okay, so I'll tell you why these are your fears, okay? And I'll tell you what is my biggest fears. My biggest fear is I don't know what I don't know, which essentially means that whatever I don't know becomes my fear. And that's why when you say failure, right, being left out, what you're saying is that you don't know what's coming next. And because of that, you are getting into that failure mode. Whatever you do, whatever you do in life, my biggest fear will always be, and until death, will be I don't know what I don't know. Because without the knowledge of what I don't know, I may not be able to take good decisions. So let's say my three is saying being left out of the group, correct? When I say being left out of the group, maybe that might be the best option given the circumstances and how you would want to be moved forward, right? So having learned it the hard way, in everybody's life, there will always be a point where you have to decide. It can be, let's say, during your placements that, hey, should I decide company A or company B? During your next juncture, when you're entering into MBA, right? Whether I should go for Harvard or I'm Ahmedabad or whatever that college is, right? Or whether I should. I mean, it can be as simple as whether I should have a conversation with this person or this person, right? In terms of boyfriend or girlfriend or maybe friends, correct? So what I believe is everybody should have a sort of a resume of what I basically say is deviations. So this I've asked. What I believe is that everybody should have the resume of mistakes or failures. I don't call them mistakes or failure. I call them deviations. And why I call them deviations? Only because what you have learned from your mistake, you basically learn from it and move forward. And that's why everybody should know what they have done in their past life, right? Now, it is very, very easy for anybody and everybody to say that, hey, you want to create a resume or so, right? So, in today's session, while I share my journey, I will be taking you through my maybe four or five pointers that I keep on top of my resume of deviation. And let's start with the first one, which is the first idea that didn't fly. My first idea that didn't fly. And this is about a decade back when I was fresh out of my college. I was in Sapient. We were working on technology projects and many other things. It was so Sapient is an Boston-based IT consulting firm. Now we were so I was actually into movies. So we used to watch movies every weekend in the big screen, going to the cinema also. So, and then me and two of my other friends decided that hey, let's create a platform where you can book movie tickets, you can select the seats, and you get everything right on your email. Okay. Because that was the time when you had to go and buy tickets on the ticket counter, right? So what happened was that we started creating that platform. 1 month into the platform, which was about 30-40% done, Book My Show got launched. And then the other two partners said that, hey, Ankit, I believe somebody has already taken this idea. Let's not pursue it. And I tried convincing them a lot that, hey, let's go ahead and do it. We should still might be able to make money. But both of them didn't pursue. And because they didn't pursue, I also didn't pursue. Right. So that idea didn't fly at all. Right. So the learning that I got from this, and it's a retrospective learning, right? That all three of us didn't have the maturity to see that, hey, if some other person or company has launched that idea, that means your idea has merit. That means that there is a good business scenario for this to sustain. So you can be entrepreneurs, you can actually go out in the market, right? None of us saw that, right? And then personally, for me, maybe I didn't have the courage to go solo. Otherwise, if those two were not going in, I could have gone, right? But I also didn't, right? So all three of us were not mature enough to see the other brighter sides of that particular activity of Book My Show being launched. Because if you remember, you won't remember, you won't even know, but with Book My Show, there were other two similar platforms that got launched in about 2 to 3 years after Book My Show launch. But none of them survived, but Book My Show did survive, right? So that is right at top of my resume of deviations. That hey, my first idea uh, actually didn't fly because we were not mature enough, and I didn't have the courage as such, right? Then the next big thing is my education. Okay. So when I say my education, I have been a above average student. So I won't say I am a person who always gets 90% plus. No, I don't. Though in my family, my brother, everybody gets 90% plus. Some of them are 12th CBSE toppers or so. But I was that kind of a guy who would get somewhere around 75 to 85%. I'm happy in my way and I'm sort of doing everything that I can. So you can treat me as above average. Now, when you basically do that, your whole education journey many a times are driven majority by your surroundings, your environment, okay, which are primarily your friends, what are they doing in those schools, and your parents and uncles and aunts in terms of what are they doing and what exposure do they have, right? When I was growing up, the best thing was you become either an engineer or a doctor, right? So everybody was saying that, hey, go and do sort of study for IITs or so. And I think there was a good rapport between me and my parents that, hey, for Ankit, let him do whatever he wants to. So I didn't pursue any IITZ training or so. I did give it. My rank wasn't. I think I still remember the cutoff for the prelim or the main was close to about 18,000 to 20,000, and my rank was about 22,000 or so. That was the time when my father came to me and told me that, Ankit, you're not bad, you're good. I think you should have taken some steps. You should have studied so that you could have gone into a good premier institute. And I said that I'm happy with what I'm doing. Probably I just need to get into a decent institute to make some life for me. And that I did, right? Now, during my MBA, and I'm just comparing IMT and Harvard, what happens is that we very rarely think that the people whom we are in touch with or our friends can actually add value to our learning, and that is very true in MBA. Okay, and I'll give you a scenario. Let's say when I went to Harvard, the people. I mean, it was so diverse batch, right? Someone from, let's say, North Indian, South Indian, geography wise, if you go into their classroom, somebody might be from Europe, some US, some China. What that does is that when you're having conversations in such a diverse group, you tend to gain a lot from their vantage points or viewpoints. So if you're thinking through a problem, what happens is that somebody will basically look at it from their background, their culture, their education, and everything that they have gone through until today, which you wouldn't have gone, right? Because I personally would not know what's happening in, forget about China, Europe, and all, right? I personally don't know what's happening in southern part of the India, how their culture is, because I have not been to there, right? So what happens is those conversations, case discussions were very meaningful. And why I have put that in my resume of deviation, because that is something that I didn't do during my engineering and MBA at IMT. Okay. We had diverse group, and I'm sure in your college as well, there will be many people across India from different cultures, different backgrounds, different economic societies, and different viewpoints. But very rarely do we engage with them and try to learn something, right? If you're a coder, the best you can do is that you basically do data structure algorithm, but from that problem understanding problem point of view, can you discuss with the other guys and move forward, right? So diversity is very important, and that diversity needs to be reflected all throughout, right? So that's my second part in this, because I didn't seek guidance, I didn't get that guidance, but having learned it the hard way, do get into that mode where you're maximizing the environment that you're in. Your professors, your books are with you, right? I'm not talking about those things, right? The environment, the diversity, and the minds that you're working with, I think those are the best things that you can leverage. Then I was lucky enough to be placed at Deloitte as a strategy consultant after my MBA. Day zero placement, and everything went well. We were very delighted. Deloitte was the first company to visit our campus, and we basically hit all the nine right nodes. However, when I went into Deloitte, so Deloitte used to give H-1B visas. So those were the premium most visas, which essentially means that Deloitte, through Deloitte, you can go to US and you can shift your company and still be in US and working for some other company per se, right? Uh, I somehow didn't want to go abroad. See, I've been to Australia during my scholarships, during my engineering, and I created robots and all through Sapient. I went to Denver, US for certain projects or so. All those are good, but personally, I didn't want to settle outside. So with Deloitte, what happened was that uh, they wanted me to go to US and Europe and work on many projects for a long time basis, which I was not very uh, open to, right? So I didn't take action on the H-1B visa. Then my manager came to me and said that, hey, Ankit, why aren't you taking this as an option? I was the most billable employee in Deloitte in that batch that joined. So Deloitte was making money on me the maximum because I was working those many hours. Okay, in the consulting domain, It's basically on the best billable person. Now there, what happened was that I clearly told them that, hey, I won't be able to go abroad, settle and all, so I can resign. And that was about a year into Deloitte. And then they said, no, we can't let you go. So they gave me an opportunity of an executive assistant. Okay. That, hey, you can work in MD's office as executive assistant, and you can be in India working with Deloitte's MD. At that point in time, very frankly, I don't know whether people know about executive assistant or not, but I didn't give heed to that. I said that I'm resigning. I resigned. Then manager came and said that, hey, this is a good opportunity. Think about it, and then basically we'll accept your resignation. He came back twice, thrice, but I said no, and then I eventually left. Now that opportunity, I was thinking that the executive assistant opportunity is like a secretary kind of a job. At that point in time, again, I was immature. Uh, but in fact, that's the best you can get because you're working in the CEO's office or the leadership office and you're the voice of that leader. You're actually internally working, you become the right hand of that leader, and your journey path goes like this, exponentially rather than a steady growth that a normal person sees. Uh, at that point in time, I was just thinking that, hey, let me resign with Deloitte and let me get into my second idea that I was thinking through, which was get admissions, which will come to in a while, right? I didn't give heed, but after I left Deloitte, after about two years or so, I sort of then read an article and all of that, and then I was like, oh, this was the opportunity that I was getting in Deloitte. So again, why in resume of deviation? Because I didn't give it heed, I didn't give it time to understand what kind of a opportunity has been offered by Deloitte, and I was in my a mindset of no, I want to launch something of my own, and that's what I did with Get Admissions just after Deloitte. So I started working on Get Admissions during my notice period at Deloitte itself, and that basically blocked my mind not to see other things that were coming and coming as opportunities for me, right? So that's why Deloitte is the second. Get admissions is third. So at that point in time, there were huge hue and cry about nursery admissions, and then me and one of my friends we thought that, hey, let's create a platform where typically throughout India, anybody throughout their school life or college life or MBA, they basically create their profile once, fill up one form, select the colleges that they want to apply through, make the payment, and boom, the application goes into all the colleges and all the schools or so. So, in a nutshell, one-stop shop for your applications for admissions. You don't have to go to multiple colleges or multiple schools, right? Soon we realized that not so premium institutes don't have too many applications to come on a common platform. They were open to come on, but then we wouldn't have made money through them. The premier institutes don't want to come on a common platform because they are premium. They don't want their brand to be associated with the other guys, and that's why till date you don't see such a platform where you are creating one profile and boom, your applications are going to all the other colleges, right? Then we thought that let's pivot and get admissions. Let's create different application forms for different colleges. We were Delhi based, so we thought that, hey, let's go. And that was the time when everybody wanted to go online, right? So we went to Delhi University, JNU. We were lucky enough, without any jack or so, we were lucky enough to have met their directors, deans, and all. And we worked with both Delhi University and JNU to figure out as to whether they can let us in to create their online portal for admissions or so. Now, at that point in time, Delhi University, some problem happened because of which that year Delhi University didn't go live, but they did after about 2 to 3 years through their own mediums. But that year, JNU accepted us as one of the RFP partners for their tendering process. And we were very, very strong on the technical skills and strategic consulting skills. So we came to the last level where the financials bid were to be opened, and there were only two partners. We were there, and some other IT firm was there. Imagine we had outdone all the big ones, big IT firms, and there were only two. Now, when the financials bid were opening, right? Imagine if the application form is of 500 rupees, a partner who is managing the whole website, the payment gateway, everything. We thought that hey, 5% is a decent sum. Ideally, it should be 10 or 15%, but if the application fee is 500, we should at least get 25 rupees. And that was the lowest that we could think that hey, we will definitely get it because all the other guys will pitch in for a higher sum. So the financial bid opened up. Our quote was 5% of the application fee, and I still remember the face of those directors or so. And they said, "Will you be able to make money?" I said, "Yes, we'll be able to make money." Then the second bid opened up. Imagine that they basically quoted only 2%, which is they were only happy in making money with 10 rupees on a 500 rupee application form. And we were surprised because the payment gateway charge itself would be close to 1.5% or 1.75%. So then we realized that, hey, we're not competing with the biggies. We are competing with those small players. And that guy was a player who used to create your written sheets where you OCR sheets where you basically circle, right? So then we thought that I think this is not the right domain for us, right? Then we again pivoted. We went to big private universities. I won't take the name of the university, but when we went there, we were speaking to the chairman of that university, and that said that, hey, Ankit, we are happy to come on the common platform, but that won't solve the purpose, right? What you do is that you basically have students admitted in our college and you take a cut of 75,000 rupees per स्टूडेंट सो एसेंशली आप बच्चों को हमारे कॉलेज भेजो और आप कमीशन उसके लेके जाओ which was not really a good idea because the whole point of Get Admission was to give them plethora of options to choose from and then sort of not consult them and move them into one domain. So we said that probably this is not the right domain, right? So what we learned from it is that we did pivot, but probably the market wasn't ready for this, and that's why till date you don't see one common platform for that. The last is Dare to Compete, which we are doing at this point in time. So let me traverse the journey of Dare to Compete. Dare to Compete started as a blog when I was in my MBA because I was participating in competitions and the information wasn't reaching to me on time. So it started off as a blog. It was a blog while I was at Deloitte, Gate Admissions and all. But only in 2016, I basically started this as full time. And that's why my resume of deviation as to why did I start so late on Dare to Compete. Dare to Compete is doing phenomenally well today. We are profitable. We have revenue in millions. We have a huge dedicated team. We have huge client base. Everything is going nice, right? But the first client that we converted, imagine, I was blown away. I mean, in terms of the first client of Dare to Compete was a quiz called Dare, which had the quiz master as Shah Rukh Khan. So our quizzing team that still works with us trained Shah Rukh Khan to do quizzing and content curation and all, and we got some handsome money, right? But still, I didn't move on to Dare to Compete as a full-time thing because it was a blog. And at that point in time, I was always thinking that, hey, once my salary from Deloitte and the others uh, is lower than Dare to Compete's income, only then I will jump in. So essentially, whenever Dare to Compete income is higher than the salary, then only I'll jump into Dare to Compete, which was a very, very wrong way to think about it. And because I didn't realize that my salary is also growing steadily. Uh, I mean, we Dare to Compete. I could have gone to Dare to Compete much earlier, and maybe Dare to Compete would have gone global, which we are doing this year. Who knows, right? So that's why it was part of my resume of deviation. So all these 5 points are my top 5 points, which I think that I was at a point where I had to choose between two or three things. I chose between one only because I didn't have the complete information about the other aspect. And that was my fear, which is I don't know what I don't know. So uh, I now make efforts to dive into all the aspects of all the options that I have and move forward. And that's why these five stories are very, very close to me, and which essentially makes me a better person. Now, before I close and I open up for questions, I have two things to share. Uh, One or two advice. You should always read and analyze things around you. And I learned it the hard way. So in 2016, when demonetization happened, right? About two weeks before the demonetization, my dad came to me and said that, "Hey, Ankit, if you have cash, please deposit in banks because I think some notes may be banned." Imagine uh, he's a retired banker. He sits at home. He's sort of an introvert. He doesn't talk to too many people. And I didn't take him seriously. I mean, we do have cash in thousands, so because my wife is a doctor, so we do get cash, but not in huge sums. Okay. So we didn't take heat. I did inform a couple of my friends just in conversation that, hey, dad was saying something. If you want, you can deposit, right? And boom, the day happened when Narendra Modi announced demonetization. And then I went to my dad and said that, hey, dad, how did you know? Because he doesn't have any jack, right? He gave a very, very nice example. He said that when he started his job about 3 to 4 decades back in, I think, late 70s or 80s, there also the demonetization happened. He's kind of a person who reads 6 newspapers a day and all the magazine, Forbes, Fortune, or so. He's an avid reader. Okay. What he told me was that when that demonetization happened, there was many news before the demonetization about RBI shifting their presses, and there were other things. He said that those kind of news I was reading the other day during that week when I told you that, hey, something may happen. Imagine he could relate 3 4 decades back analysis or what he read with today's article or so. And that's why he could guess that, hey, something is going to happen, right? No matter whether, I mean, uh, my I didn't act on that news, but that day I had an inborn new respect for my dad only because he read and analyzed. And then I'll take another example. Let's say if hypothetically, if let's say Reliance is coming or Geo is coming to recruit from your college, right? And in the interview, if you basically push across to the interviewer a question that, hey, I've been reading about Geo and Reliance. They have done these for 3 or 4 acquisitions. They're moving into this domain. I believe now they're becoming a more digital company or whatever that is, right? uh, Forget about whether interviewer knows this or not, right? They will appreciate the way you have read and analyzed things about the company, and your chances of getting into that company pumps up 10x or 20x. Very rarely would they reject you as a person. That's why read and analyze things around you. That's the best thing that you can do, right? The last thing is that every one of us are good at doing something or the other. It may not be academics. It may be maybe creating best PPTs. It might be playing cricket, playing badminton, maybe sketching, right? You need to ensure that you are actually building your brand, ensuring that people get to know your best thing that you are good at, maybe data science, algorithm, or whatever that is, right? And that helps you network with people, because for me, networking is not that, hey, I should know all other 500 people in my college, right? Networking and branding is that all other 500 people should know me by my name, and that can only happen once you are part of the conversations of the other guys. Okay, and that will only happen once you're good at something which other guys start appreciating. You may not be the only person, but imagine all 500 are not good at everything, right? There might be 10 people who might be good at cricket. There might be 10 people who might be good at badminton. So identify that. And when I say network well, make efforts to make to network, okay, but not be pushy to basically go into conversations of every person, send LinkedIn invite, start sending messages. No, you need to have that subtle thing where you are making efforts. An effort can be, let's say, if you're in your message, two tables are there. One table completely empty with four chairs. One table have two people sitting. Two chairs are empty. If you're taking your food plate, you go into that table where two people are sitting, right? You may not have to have a conversation with them, but that gives you a chance to have a conversation with them. Maybe they start the conversation with you, or they might be talking about something that you are best at, right? So that's why I'm saying that brand and network well with people. And the last thing is whatever you would like to do, right? Whether you want to run a 100-meter race or a marathon, uh, think like a startup as if there is no tomorrow. So I would just say that start today. That's it. I'm open to questions. I don't want to take too much time on the Gyan, but I'm open to questions now. I'll just share my. Yeah.
Yeah, guys, if you have any question, you can unmute yourselves, and either you can type in the chat box also.
Yeah.
Sir, there is already a question by Ranjan. He's
Mhm.
asking, what was the most difficult part on execution of your startup?
For any startup, I think once you have the idea and you are moving forward, building the team is the most difficult part of the founder. Building a team of people who are trustworthy, who can own stuff, who can be thought partners is the most difficult thing to do. It may not come handy, and that is also a luck part that hey, you're able to get good people right at the start of the team, and that's why every investor, when they invest in a startup, the first thing that they look at is the foundation, which is the founders and their founding team, how good they are, and then they basically look at the idea also.
Uh, so there's another question by Shyam, who is asking how to think that startup is going to boom or not.
You, I mean, that's betting, very frankly, whether this will boom or not. Okay, that's betting. I mean, very frankly, when you're getting into the startup journey, what you should be concerned about is that whether your idea is good or not, whether that is scalable or not, whether that is feasible or not, right? Once all these things are there, once you've started building your team, forget about whether this is boom or not, right? There might be just one point, let's say Zoom, correct? Now, Zoom only became a household name only because of Corona, right? Then Microsoft jumped into MS Teams, right? Only because Corona was there. Otherwise, they had no plans of creating an MS Teams, correct? So there might be certain external forces that takes your startup to a different level altogether. But you can't think whether your startup will boom or not. You just need to ensure that your idea is good or not, scalable or not, feasible or not, and you have a good team. It will boom no matter what, whether today, tomorrow, or maybe a day after, but it will boom. Boom.
Yeah, I
Then,
had one question.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so like Dare to competes, their target customers are online events and
Mhm.
other corporate partners. So how was your like strategy behind converting your early adapters and like bringing the early adapters to your platform and then converting them into your future customers?
Sure. See, I would say Dare to Compete has been one of those startups, and lucky enough to didn't have a sales team as well, but still. So essentially, what was happening with Dare to Compete, people were using Dare to Compete. They were very happy with their usage, with their experience on Dare to Compete. They basically referred us to some other companies or so, and we actually till date, all the sales that we're doing, all the revenue that we're generating, it is inbound, which means that we get leads. People hop on to Dare to Compete, they send an email to sales@daretocompete.com, and then we convert them. And what happens is that if a person is reaching out to you for a service, the chances of conversions are much higher than you doing a cold call and reaching out to them. Okay, that's where what we are saying is that as a Dare to Compete, we are not really working to create a brand for our customers. Okay, but we are looking at creating a brand for our users, because they will become our voice when they join any company. That hey, if you want to do a hiring challenge or a hackathon or anything, go and Dare to Compete and do it. Because in my college life, I was only on Dare to Compete. No matter what I need, I was basically going on Dare to Compete. So we were focusing on each and every element of the user journey rather than a pure play customer journey.
Right, but like to get those first customers, there you had to like cold emails and like approach them. So
So
what is
I'll talk about my first cold call. Okay, and that was a disaster. I mean, I still remember I made this cold call to Coca-Cola VPHR. Okay, she basically picked up the call. That was my first cold call. She basically told me, "Hey Ankit, you have 30 minutes to sell, otherwise I'll ban." Right? Imagine you just give a call, the first call, and the person in front says you only have 30 seconds. And I personally, I couldn't speak. I mean, I was without words. I was just saying, oh, Dare to Compete is that. And she just banged the call after 30 seconds. And I was very upset. Okay. Then we thought that probably our concept is such that we cannot sell this kind of a concept to a person over a call. Okay. Then we tried a different approach. We basically said that, hey, if they are looking at doing engagements with students for either internships or campus hiring or for other things, right? Then let students be our campus ambassadors. It took us a while. For next 6 months, we didn't do cold calls as such. But what we tried doing was that there were close to about 1,000 users that we had that we engaged with. We basically roped them as our extended sales team. So I still remember that at that point in time, when you go, you are actually working with the HRs and the other guys as well. If you're going on to the internships, we just send them an email that, hey, I hope you would have loved interacting with Dare to Compete. We do these services. If you're working on a project, right, do let us know if we can be of any help, right? I still remember the first companies, Reliance and Aditya Birla Group, came to us only because their interns or their other guys referred Dare to Compete that, hey, they have been doing something on Dare to Compete, why don't you do it? Okay, that is for the corporates. Now let me come to the second part, which is student organizers. Okay, how we have tried building this whole community of student organizers, so that when they are organizing, they organize on Dare to Compete. Okay, so earlier we created it as an exclusive community. So in 2016 and 17, it was exclusive, which means that only colleges that partnered with us were allowed to list their competitions on Dare to Compete. Okay, that restricted us because then we were only doing it for few IIMs, and we started off with these schools, right? So with few IIMs and some other Privy colleges, but we were not getting that scale. Okay. Then we thought that now since, and we were relying on them to promote. So let's say if I'm Ahmedabad is using Dare to Compete as a partner to use our services, the other colleges will follow for registrations. And then in a I still remember in one meeting, I said to my team that, hey, I think we'll have to open our platform to everybody because we are competing with the likes of Google Form and FB. So that was the trigger wherein we opened up a platform free of cost to anybody and everybody for the student and the NGO market. That basically created a platform where anybody and everybody can list their competition, promote them, and take registration. All of this is in a free market, and then we only charge them for promotions for which we are making money. So that was our first set of revenues that were flowing in for these two different markets. We created these two different approaches. Yeah.
Guys, you can unmute yourself. Whoever wants to ask question, you can unmute yourself and ask. Uh, there are questions in the chat box also. So,
Sure.
Maitri wants to ask you that did you ever feel any issue regarding the idea theft?
Oh, so initially I did, but since when we were launching any new products or so, I did feel about it. But then later, I didn't give it heat. Only because many a times what will happen is that if let's say your friend has to do it or anybody has to do it, they will have to make efforts. Okay. And if you have the idea and you're not making efforts, then you have anyways lost the bet. So if you get an idea, that's why my last part was that think like a startup as if there is no tomorrow. So if you have the idea, you need to act now. You can't have an idea for years because probably you're not the only one who is getting that idea. There may be multiple others who will be also getting that idea. So, I mean, personally, I don't think you need to even think about the idea theft, right? Because there's much more than just stealing an idea that the other person will have to do to make it a success. And if you're thought through an idea, you should have that courage to start on it. Yeah.
Good
Sir
afternoon, sir.
Rahul, yeah, yeah, go on.
Sir, I want to ask one question. How was your experience at Harvard?
I mean, as I said, I mean, Harvard is, or for that matter, let me generalize it. Right? See, a professor or a classroom that makes you think throughout that time is the best experience that you can get. Okay. Fortunately, at Harvard, all the professors, the environment, the community is such that no matter what you do in that classroom, which is a typical 90 minutes classroom or so, you're always thinking of concepts. And that's why the experience is amazing. And now that is also happening in IITs and IIMs as well, right? The only difference, and don't take me in wrong, and I don't know about IITs and IIMs, but in many other colleges, if at Harvard we were taught by maybe 10 professors, mostly all 10 were fabulous, right? In the other colleges, they might not be as good as the Harvard professors because they may not be letting you think through in your classrooms. They might be focusing more on the theoretical aspects rather than the practical aspects. Let's say one thing is that none of my classrooms had a theoretical classroom. So nobody was teaching a concept. They used to give us papers which we had to read. Okay, so there was a lot of efforts that we had to do, and then in the classroom it was only cases, no theory, nothing at all. Yeah, so it was good. But then it is happening in the Indian education as well. IIMs are also doing it, and I'm sure IITs are also doing
Yeah, So, will you be willing to take some more questions as there are a
Sure,
few?
sure, sure.
Okay. So, Utkarsh wants to ask you, what are the future plans of Dare to See and how will they advance and manage in that? Like, how will you advance and manage in that direction?
So, I mean, there are many more verticals that we are getting into. We have the technology platform, we are getting into more and more use cases. So let's say we have the quizzing platform, right? Now we are looking at getting into live quizzing, where let's say if you're doing this, why not at the end of the session we do a quiz on Dare to Compete, live quiz where we can actually gamify, right? You'll be able to see your score vis-a-vis others, and you'll be scored on the accuracy as well as speed. So all those areas are coming into the picture. So we want to go as broad as not only students, right? Maybe when you're actually doing a session with your family members, right? Or the family members are doing a session on Zoom, can they use Dare to Compete as an engagement platform, right? So all those areas we are getting into. Then we are expanding in different geographies, US, Europe, Asia Pacific or so, starting this year. So yeah, I mean, we are sort of moving forward in all directions that we can at this point in time. But again, we are bootstrapped. We are profitable, so we are able to invest. Because I saw one question on how to get money. Right, the first set of money will be your money or your friends and all. Don't be hard bent on getting funding of $1 million and only starting off. You need to have your minimum viable product uh, ready. Only then you'll be able to get funding or so, but don't depend on funding as such. Yeah.
Mm. So, here I want to ask one of my question that, like, from where this idea of this name Dare to Compete, like D2C came?
Oh, I owe it to my friends, very frankly. I mean, when I was launching my blog, I was in my classroom. I still remember the hostel lobby. Okay, so there were about 20 rooms, and all of us were friends. When we were sitting around, I told them that, hey, I'm looking out for this idea. I don't know what name I should buy. And then slowly and steadily, we created a list of 100 names and we knocked them off. None of them worked. And then suddenly we said that why not Dare, right, as a name. But at that point in time, there was a Dare magazine or so. I said, I really like this name, but that cannot be the only name. Then then somebody said, let's say Compete. And I said that let's combine both of them and let's say Dare to Compete. And then everybody liked it. So it was basically a trial through my friends, everybody. I mean, see, friends in your hostel life and your education life or whatever you do, right, are, form a critical aspect. And they are your best judges, they are your best critics, and they will be your friends forever. Yeah. So I owe the name to the friends as such.
Okay. So,
Sir,
Divyansh wants to ask you that do you have any plans to conduct workshop and boot camps on your platform?
It may be. So we have started working in that direction. So certain workshops are being conducted for us, not boot camps as such. You can list workshops and boot camps, but if the question is conducting it on Dare to Compete, you may soon see that as a feature. But there are other platforms which are there doing the same thing.
Divyansh, you can unmute yourself and ask your further doubts if you have any. Okay, moving to the next question. Sparsh wants to ask you that once you opened up the platform to everyone, how did you moderate events and competitions on that platform?
So that was done manually, very frankly. We have a dedicated team that moderates all the events and competitions and approves them within 24 hours. Very recently, this year itself, what we did, and that was sort of so that lead time of you listing a competition, then waiting for us to moderate, we closed it because as soon as you list it now, your competition goes live in the private mode so that you can start promoting it and getting your registrations. It still gets moderated because everything that goes on Dare to Compete needs to be authenticated. So yes, I mean it's still done manually by our team.
I had one question. Like we can, like in a way, say that D2C is like a customer to customer platform. So, like, what tips you will give for a startup who is beginning its like building a C2C platform, and how should he like balance between those two ends, like balance between like balancing those two customers, those two different type of customers.
See, for me, so C2C is generally a peer-to-peer platform. For me, it is still either B2C or B2B2C, only because what happens is that if a student becomes an organizer, for us, that student becomes a customer, which is a business, right? Yes, it is the same user, correct? But that becomes an organizer, whether they're organizing workshop, competitions, or so. Uh, my advice in all these cases where your users become your customers, okay, is that focus on the user journey more than the customer journey. Okay, brand yourself really, really well in the user market, because those are the ones when they experience the platform, those are the ones who would want to use it for their own purposes. Okay, and that's what has been happening, very frankly, with Zoom, with possibly MS Teams. MS Teams was a bit different story because that is completely B2B. All the MS Teams are being used by the business guys, but Zoom is a clear example where anybody can go and purchase their licenses and use it free of cost. So focus on the user journey rather than on a customer journey per se. Or you can combine both of them. So like what we are doing is we have combined both of them, because we are asking them to register. They can list on a free basis. So for us, they try become our consumers, but we are not making money until and unless they basically use us for promotions. But our still money, 90% of our revenue comes from the business, which is corporates, companies.
So like
And
I have one question.
uh,
So
yeah,
like how did you manage the self-doubt which came across your life? Means you have switched to so many things. So like you have switched your job, you have switched one more startup idea. So there is something self-doubt which came in your mind. Then how did you deal with that?
It's not self doubt. Uh, it was that possibly. So it's always an exploration. I mean, what should I say? A discovery led journey. Okay. Many a time, see, when we are students, we don't know what's coming next, right? As I said, we are dependent on our ecosystem, our influences, which are either our parents, our uncle, aunts, our professors, or our friends, right? Whatever they know, we get to know. Now it's a discovery led journey, right? You try and reject things that you definitely don't want to do, right? And then move up to a point wherein you start liking things and move forward. In an entrepreneur's journey, your attitude towards business takes importance, and the support that you get from your family takes importance. I mean, these two things are definitely required. Your support from the family, because no matter what, I mean, I had a very, very great job at Deloitte, right? My family earlier was shouting at me as to why are you resigning and all of that, right? But then my father understood that, hey, he wants to do something different. Go ahead and do it, right? Uh, and the second thing is that in an entrepreneur's, or no matter what, whether you're in your job, there will be at times where you will feel upset, you will feel low, you may cry, right? But what option do you have? You have to get up no matter what, right? You'll have to move forward. I basically say that whenever you're feeling low, think about anything that makes you happy, right? Might be speaking to your girlfriend or a boyfriend makes you happy, or your family makes you happy, or listening to a songs make you happy, right? I'll tell you what I do. So when I'm feeling down, because I know shit happens. Okay. When I'm feeling down, I listen to about two songs and I try smiling, right? And I won't tell you which two songs because you'll judge me because they're old songs. And the second thing that I do, which makes me believe that I'm worth much more, so I share my date of birth with Mark Zuckerberg. Exactly the same day, both were born, year, month, day, everything, right? So then I treat him as a brother. He doesn't know me, but I know him, right? So I treat him as the brother, and I always say that, hey, if he can manage many things at one go, why can't I? Because both of us are born on the same day. And that makes me smile and move up. So you need to figure out what makes you smile and move up because that's the only way to move forward. But I would rather say that in a startup journey, try new things and fail fast rather than trying few things and sticking on to them for ages.
Yes, sir.
Sir, you would be taking some more questions?
Sure, another 5 minutes, maybe.
Okay. Sir, Swapnil wants
So
to
I have
ask
a
you.
question.
Yes, you go on.
Okay. Yeah, yes, I have a question. Like, if you come up with an idea and you are not proficient with any skills that you need to build it up, would you go to build a team or just or like learn a skill and learn skills, be a solo entrepreneur, go solo?
You'll have to do both. There is no doubt in my mind. I mean, you will have to build a team because you alone cannot build a company for sure. Okay. You will have to learn skills because, well, you're building your uh, team, you need to know what they will be doing, right? I'm not talking about coding, right? But let's say if the skill is about your creating an electronic car, right? You should know the basics of creating an electronic car, not the design, no other aspects, right? Which are very, very technical in nature. So I would say you'll have to do both. You will have to learn few skills that you don't have, but you will have to create a team as well. Both are required, not one. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Uh, Sir, Swapnil wants to ask you, how important is building a company culture for an organization? And if yes, how did you do it?
I mean, in a startup, the culture is very, very important because in a startup, when you're pushing across, you give freedom to the founding team, but you also want their trust and ownership, right? So what you expect them to do, you do it yourself and you do it with them. So if you want them to have not have a culture of micromanagement, right? You don't have to micromanage your own managers, right? If you don't want to have a culture of maybe people applying for leaves, right? Then you also don't expect from your managers, okay, or your reportees. If you want to set up a culture where they basically come dedicatedly on time and possibly leave on time, then you will have to come on time as well. So the culture starts with you. Okay. But building a culture that suits your organization. So let's say uh, any ideas, okay, maybe a small culture wherein, so at Dare to Compete, no idea is thrown in dustbin. Okay. People can give their ideas and we as the founding team needs to respond to them in either way. So when I say either way, so we have an open environment where anybody can reach out to me as well for any idea or others, right? What I do is if you're sending me an email of 10 different ideas, I will give you a bullet point liner that, hey, this idea sounds good. We can go forward and I'll assign that to somebody else, okay, for action. If I don't like an idea, I will tell them as to what I don't like about the idea so that they know that their ideas have been heard, right? If I don't take action on those 10 ideas, that person would never give more ideas. And that person will tell five others in either of the cases. So it starts with you. The culture that you are building, you need to do it with your immediate reportees. And while in your check ins, you need to emphasize those culture so that they do it with their reportees. In every company, no matter what, whatever culture the top management sets, the CXO, CEO, the founder, and all, that only goes down. Tata's and Infosys are very, very ethically right companies only because their founders or the founding teams were that way, right? But there might be other companies that may not be looked at like these two companies, right? Only because there might be certain doubts about the founding team.
Uh, Thank you, sir, for answering my question, and thanks, Aditi, for asking it. I have one more follow-up question. So, due to the pandemic, we are generally shifting to the work from home and remote work. So, can you comment a bit about it? That what are the difficulties and what do you think are its future?
I mean, see, everybody saying that we are getting into a new normal, that everybody will start working from home, working from virtual spaces. Personally, I don't think in a long term that will happen. If you see, because the cases are going down now, no people are wearing lesser masks. People have started opening offices like us as well. Uh, Virtual space cannot replace what used to happen in person. Okay. However, that's the best you can get at this point in time. The flexibilities is something that you will now get in this world. So let's say if you want to work 2 days work from home and rest work from office, you can do that, right? Those smaller interventions. So let's say our technology team, correct? Yes, they can work virtually, right? But this week everybody was in office. The kind of output that we've got this week cannot be matched for any week since the lockdown began in March 2020. Only because when you're sitting around, you're talking to people, you think aloud and you try and solve problems at a much, much faster pace than in the virtual world. So I mean, I don't see a new normal coming. I can just see that there will always be flexibilities, more flexibilities will be extended to the employees. But work from office or study from college needs to happen. Studies, unfortunately, with professors and all, is required, and physical interactions. Okay, so last two questions, Aditi.
Yeah, sure, sir. So I wanted to ask you that would you like to come for placements or internships here at IIT BHU in near future, maybe?
We have been doing it. So I'm not sure if you know Pratham, who was in Placecom at IIT BHU. He's now at CRED, so he passed out this year. So he was working with us as interns or so. He was the winner of one of our competitions with Optum Stratathon, and a few people are also working in our company. I think, sorry, one right now who is from IIT BHU. Whether we come for campus placements or not, that's a separate discussion altogether, and possibly our HR team will sort of handle it because there are multiple variables at play. But we do attract interns as well as full-time opportunities from the companies as well. We have in our tech team people from other IITs, not from IIT BHU, but other IITs.
Yeah. Guys, the floor is open for questions. You may go ahead and ask.
Yeah. Last question.
Yeah,
Yeah,
last.
I had a question like, are you looking for alternate source of revenue while listing events other than promotions in future?
We are anyways doing multiple revenue streams. We are expanding our use cases. Our core won't change. So our core is that we gamify learning, engagements, and hiring. Now we may get into let's say, assessments, which we are anyways doing. That's an added revenue stream or so. But our core won't change. We will still be gamifying things, which might be gamifying assessments, hiring, jobs, and connecting companies and students and early working professionals.
Sir, last question. Which will be the booming area in the market in future?
There's no one booming area. Every few years, there'll be different booming areas. Right now, everything that can go online becomes a booming area. So everything that can be digitized. In India specifically, I can just say that there are humongous opportunities to build not only digital areas, maybe factories on semiconductors, or things that we rely on other countries like China and others, where the imports are being hurt, right? Indian government is doing a lot of push. So, I mean, one area that people don't think of, a startup can be a non-digital startup as well. Can we create a factory of semiconductors? It's a huge billion-dollar market, right? And to do that, you need to have an expertise in sort of semiconductors and your background or so. So maybe that's one area that I definitely think. The other areas are about, I mean, I don't know, but can we have a different version of tourism? Can we have a virtual reality tourism or so? Nobody has been able to crack it. I'm just giving you food for thought in terms of new areas that you can think through, because everything that you may see right now, some or the other person must have captured it, right? These are the new areas which may become a boom in next 2 to 3 years per se. Yeah.
Yeah, this brings us to the end of the session. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your journey with us. That story of Deloitte and that you said that read and analyze, and the story about your father was really fascinating. And that was a really good takeaway. We are truly inspired and motivated right now. I would like to call Abhishek Bhaiya now. Before that, sir, would you like to give some piece of advice to the students who are going to start their startup journey, basically?
My only advice, like I said, I mean, whether you want to run 100-meter race or a sprint or a marathon, just ensure, just think as if there is no tomorrow. You have to act today. That's it. You can't wait for ages to act on your idea, whatever you do.
Now, sir, I would like to call Abhishek Bhaiya for the vote of thanks.
Yeah, sure, Aditi. Thank you so much, sir. We at ESL IIT BHU are grateful to you for giving your precious time to us. Also, I thank all the participants too for your active participation throughout the session. Now it's time to wrap up this beautiful talk. Once again, thank you everyone. Take care and goodbye.
Sure. Thank you, everyone. All the best for the future endeavors. It was lovely
Thank you, sir.
interacting with you. Bye. See you.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.